Hi everybody, this is Coffee with Lorelei number 8, and I just want to say thank you to everyone sincerely for watching my videos and supporting me and sending me messages and comments, and I really appreciate it. And I want to say that this is going to be my last Coffee with Lorelei video. I just feel that most of what I have to say is already out in all my videos, and so I don't really have anything else to add. So this video is about, I've found some of my favorite meditations on YouTube. So I'll put the descriptions in the link or in the video description, and just some of my favorite resources. And the second part of this will be about women's health, because I've had quite a few questions about women's health and how that piece, how it fits in with, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, etc. I will be making a video about different brain retraining programs and my opinion of how they differ and how they helped me. And this will be put in the Research with Lorelei video mini series that I started. So it'll still be on my same YouTube channel. So it'll be DNRS and Gupta and a few other programs I'm going to mention. So that will be with sort of the Research with Lorelei video mini series. And so so this is basically for finishing up my brain retraining questions. And I do want to say thank you to everybody who's honored me with their story and sharing of their journey. And I have a lot of compassion for you, because it is not easy being on this journey. And some of the questions and comments have been very involved with descriptions of what they've gone through and sort of where I would go next. And I have a lot of trouble sort of trying to answer those questions, basically because I am not a trained, coach. I'm not a trained registered clinical counselor, and I can only answer these questions from my own personal journey. And I do have a lot of compassion for people who are having some difficult and some difficult symptoms and difficult decisions. There is not a well-integrated model of mind-body health yet. And trying to navigate, the traditional Western medical model and sort of the newer model of mind-body wellness, it's a bit challenging, because many health practitioners don't understand it yet. And but describing your symptoms and what you've been through, it's very difficult for me to comment, because because of my limitations, and but I do have a lot of compassion, because you're trying to seek answers using sort of a more integrated model, and that understanding is still very limited. So I do appreciate and empathize with you, but I really feel that some of the direct questions with regards to ITS and medications, supplements, treatment, it's not in my experience, and it's not in my ability to actually answer those questions. And I'm going to defer them to your own coach and your own medical team, and for the people who actually can examine you and interview you and let you know what their best advice is. But I do still stick very rigidly to my code of ethics, which is first, do no harm, and I don't want to steer anybody in the wrong direction. Okay, so I want to thank you for your sharing of your stories. Favorite meditations. So as I said, my favorite meditations are the Oprah and Deepak Chopra 21-day meditations. I put some of my favorites in the video description. And Rick Hansen, I think many of you know, I'm a big fan of his Hardwiring Happiness books. I just recently started listening to his podcast. So if you look up Rick Hansen podcast, is a free weekly podcast with sort of mindfulness and general psychological wellness tips. So that's a really great resource for you. And as I mentioned before, I think it just might be in a typed out in the video description. So I did do an interview with Chazsmith. Her podcast is entitled "Our Power Is Within," and I was very honored to be interviewed by her on a podcast. So that link to my podcast is in the video description. And there's lots of great podcasts in her Our Power Is Within show. Matthew Stensland-Boz just did recently another interview with her, and I will talk about him a little bit later in my video. And so I'll put the link to his podcast in the video description as well. Now, rewiringyourwellness.com is a great resource. It's got lots of blogs and information about brain retraining, brain rewiring, and so there's a Q&A with Candy, and there's a list of different WhatsApp groups there's primarily for DNRS retrainers, but there are WhatsApp groups, I think, for anybody who's doing a brain retraining program like Gupta or some of the other programs. So I will put those links in the video description as well. And if there's anything else I can think of that I need to add, that people have messaged me and I've given them links, I'll add that in the video description. So the second part of this video is about women's health. So I'm going to start that part now. So it might not be in your comfort level or your training zone to listen to descriptions about its and symptoms of illness. So I just want to say thank you and let you bow out. Women's health. So women's health is not well researched, and it's starting to change, but a lot of the medical models, a lot of the medical descriptions of illness and sort of side effects from medications, etc., they are built on a Caucasian male subject. So there's not a whole lot known on differences between men's health and women's health yet, and there are not a lot known about different differences between races and people of color. So it's coming, but there's a lot of limitations to what we know. So now it's pretty generally known that chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, there's a lot more women affected than men, and there is a lot more women affected in the ages 40 to 55, and which also corresponds to perimenopause and menopause in women. So it's not lost on me and many of us that so there must be some correlation, something there that makes women in this age group much more susceptible to these types of disorders. Now, as I've mentioned in my previous videos, CFS and FM, they are thought to be, dysautonomia or autoimmune dysfunction, that with a probable autoimmune component, sort of a neuroautoimmune component. And So, and then with women's health, with it being such a large change in hormones and autonomic nervous system function, that that one will impact the other. And so if you are going through sort of a lot of women's health issues and hormone changes, that may slow down your improvement with your its and your symptoms. It may not. It is likely that one can influence the other, but there's nothing really known yet. So I can't say for sure about a lot of this. This is sort of my interpretation of what's out there, and my interpretation from my own experience. Now, the menopausal symptoms, include hot flashes and chills, night sweats, heart rate issues, memory issues, heavy menstrual cycle, sleep issues, mood changes, and weight gain, metabolism issues, calcium loss in bone, fatigue, dizziness, nausea, joint pain, and immune changes. And I thought I would just talk a little bit about how, so, these symptoms do sound a lot similar to chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. So I just thought I'd just kind of fill it out a little bit about how possibly they can be interacting. So, and I'm going to tell you a couple stories. My first story is that I think many of you know that I used to get a lot of its when I started on my exercise bicycle, and I would be stopping at the 1.5 minute, 2 minute mark, where I get flushing and I get a lot of dizziness, etc., and I have to stop and get off. And then one day I realized that my hot flashes were actually a lot of the time caused by a little limbic thought that went through my brain and would cause a hot flash immediately. And I went, oh, isn't that interesting that my hormonal changes that I was experiencing recently would initiate a lot of hot flashes with any sort of limbic trigger. So let's say I had a slight, oh gee, I wonder what she thinks of me. Boom, hot flash, and my face would get all flushed. So, and as we know, the limbic system will trigger the response of embarrassment, shame, and guilt. So when I kind of clicked that on, that my hot flashes were coinciding with sort of just a limbic little thought going by my brain, I went, oh, okay, that makes total sense. My hormones, for some reason, are making my limbic system hot flashes that much more easily triggered. And I think sort of the few months before my its went away, I was going to Telegraph Cove, which is up island, on Vancouver Island. It's a famous kayaking killer whale habitat. And I had been getting a lot of symptoms that hadn't been there for years, and I didn't know what was going on, but it was coinciding with a lot of menopausal symptoms. So I knew there was a link, and I was really, really tired, and I had gone back to napping several times a day just for the last few weeks, and lying down and really not having a very fun time and trying to figure out what was going on. And my family and I had planned on this trip to Telegraph Cove, and I had been dreaming about kayaking in this sound for 20, 25 years. I'd heard about it when I was in my 20s and had been wanting to do this. And so we traveled up there, and I was really excited. And you know, my symptoms were starting to ease as we traveled up there. It's about 6.5 hours drive. And then the next day, I still wasn't sure that I actually was going to get in that kayak because of how I felt. But I just thought, well, I wasn't going to let my limbic system stop me. I've been waiting for this for so many years, and my family was with me, and we were all set and paid for to go on this kayaking trip. And all my symptoms actually left within a day that I had been having over the last few weeks. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? Because I was so excited about going on this kayaking trip. So there is a limbic component to menopausal symptoms, I believe. How much? I don't know. How much in your particular journey? I don't know. Now, carrying this story on, so I was it-free, symptom-free for about 9 months, and I had another hormonal change, and I do actually have some symptoms return. They're not there all the time. I do have some fatigue issues again, but they're not there all the time. Some days they're there, some days they're not. Some dizziness issues. Now, they do seem to coincide with a bunch of menopausal symptoms. So they do seem to be sort of coupled with it. I don't know when they're going to go away. I'm still doing my brain retraining. I still have days when they're there. I still have days when they're not. So I'm not too concerned. And I think that for me, it's sort of trying to get and reframe the its, because, for example, the mood changes. So let's say if you're having a lot of women's health issues and hormonal issues, and you start getting some its in anxiety and depression or whatever, as we know, hormone changes do affect mood in women. And the most obvious example of this is postpartum depression. So postpartum depression is not understood. But it's known that hormones can affect mood and emotions in women. So, and the empathy that we have and the increased sensitivity to others' emotions is very important, actually, in biology and child rearing. So women are equipped, are gifted with more sensitivity to other people's emotions, and particularly during childbirth and after childbirth. So there are a lot of reasons why, we get some of these symptoms. And it's fascinating to me, and it's also miraculous to me that our bodies can, at the age of 11, 12, 13, can change and produce children. It's miraculously. I mean, childbearing and rearing, it's miraculous that our bodies can do this. And so that as we go through the change that all women go through of changing our hormones to not menstruating anymore, I mean, it's a miraculous change that our bodies are going through. And to have a lot of compassion for ourselves and a lot of compassion for our bodies. And it's in traditional Chinese medicine, menopause is actually termed by some as the second spring. And I thought, isn't that lovely? This, it's our second spring. It's a reawakening of life, and a change, a beautiful change in our bodies. So I really like that viewpoint. And some of the dizziness and nausea, I mean, as we know, the first trimester of pregnancy, lots of hormone changes, nausea, morning sickness. And so it may be, and as I said, nobody knows for sure, that some of the dizziness and nausea that women get as they go through menopause might be related to the same hormone changes that we get with morning sickness. And also with the flushing and the blood flow changes that can cause inner ear disturbances, migraines, benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, which is the crystals in your ear dislodge. So that may be why that these hormone changes and the blood flow changes, they cause a little bit more of these types of symptoms in some women during menopause. But again, take the holistic approach, and if you're having hormone issues, I do recommend that you actually consult your doctor and your medical team, because there is very easy cures for benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. It's a maneuver that you can get done by a vestibular physiotherapist or ear, nose, and throat doctor. These are, there could be supplements or herbs that your traditional Chinese medicine doctor prescribes for the change of life, with hormones. I'm always been an advocate of a holistic mind and body approach to wellness. So, you might want to think about investigating that. If that doesn't resonate, don't worry about it. It's like I said, this is only my thoughts, my opinions about what's helpful for me, and just sharing some of my viewpoints. And joint pain, if you can think about when a woman becomes pregnant, there's lots of hormone changes, and the hormones cause ligaments to relax so the pelvis grows larger. So it relaxes so the pelvis actually can accommodate the baby. And it may be that, again, the hormone changes with menopause affect our joints, and that, so there's a common complaints of, frozen shoulder and knee pain, etc. It may also be linked to some of the hormone changes that women go through. And of course, estrogen does, it is believed that it has a helpful sort of impact on cartilage and coating of joints. So again, it's these things, menopause is a normal change in a woman's body. And to sort of, I don't know, not minimize it, but reframe it as, something that all women go through, and it's not well known, but that, it is a beautiful change, and all women go through it. Some women don't get any symptoms at all. And for me, it's not making a big deal out of it. Is, I'm just a normal, healthy, 50-something odd woman who is going through menopause, who is getting some menopausal symptoms. And so I think I just want to say that so there is some immune changes with hormones. So, when a woman goes through pregnancy, there's, the body has to realize that, okay, this is the baby, and, for the body to accept that the baby is part of oneself, and then the immune system also kicks in to protect the baby with certain antibodies, etc. And a nice example I like to use is, so when I was working at my clinic, one of the doctor's wives, during her pregnancy, she became allergic to so many things. And because the body was trying to figure out what was, it had to mount a defense against and what it didn't, and she became allergic to dairy and eggs and all sorts of things. And after she had the baby, after a few months, all her allergies went away. So that was very interesting to me, how the hormone changes affected the immune system. So just to keep those in mind, that your body will figure it out, and it's just part of women's health, and changes of the autonomic nervous system. So I hope that's somewhat helpful. It I think it takes I want to take the scariness out of it. If the symptoms that you're experiencing with menopause is scary, because because if it reminds you of your limbic system storm, then of course it's going to have more emotional weight there. But if you kind of realize that, okay, of course, if my part of my limbic storm was elbow pain, and then one day after a year or two of retraining, you hit your elbow, you're thinking, oh no, it's like, it's my limbic system's acting up again. It's something, it's you're I'm just trying to make it so that you're not making a bigger deal out of it. Of course, it's going to trigger some old memories and some old emotions, but menopause is a normal journey that all women have to go through. And so I'm going to leave you with this. I really enjoyed Matthew Stensland-Baugh's, I hope I'm saying that right, his interview with Chazsmith. His website is called Forging Your Own Legend, and I love that. He's got a very unique perspective on brain retraining, and I found it really, really enlightening. That he said, well, he was going to follow his life's passion. He was going to follow his dream, his joy, and his limbic system could come along for the ride if it wanted to. But he was going to play in his band. He was going to do these shows, and he was going to ignore his limbic system. And I really like that, because now that I've had some reemergence of some symptoms that are normal with menopause, I really like the fact that I'm identifying myself as a normal, healthy, middle-aged female who is just going to get on with her life and her forging her own legend and following my joy and my dreams and my values. And my symptoms can come along for the ride, but I don't identify with them. I'm not my symptoms. I am me, and I'm still forging my own legend, and my symptoms can come along for the ride. So I hope that was somewhat helpful, and thank you so much for your time and your audience in my videos. I do ask that if you've found any of my videos helpful or worthwhile, and you feel called to make a monetary contribution to one of my favorite charities or your own charity, I would love that. My financial training zone is fairly limited, and I'm very grateful that I have the money that we need to take care of our family, but I don't have a lot of extra. But my favorite charities are the World Wildlife Fund, and anything to help us combat climate change, and the Red Cross humanitarian effort in around the world. So if you feel called to make a small donation, $1 or $2 or $5 to for me, or I would so love that. And if you could take the time to message me and say, Lorelei made a small contribution on your behalf to these charities, I would so greatly appreciate it. Or you can make a contribution to one of your own charities, or if your financial training zone is very limited, you know, if you could just pay it forward when you can with some extra kindness, or with a donation to your food bank, or a donation of used clothing to some charitable organization that deals with homelessness and poverty in your community, I would really appreciate it. So thank you so much, and I have been really truly blessed by this community, and I just want to say thank you, and we'll see you in my Research with Lorelei videos, and I'm still around if you want to message me. So, but thank you so much.